to my neglect in terms of my lack of consciousness for the time. We're going to wrap two others up, but we want to leave them to 12 minutes each if we could in the presentations. It's lunchtime, and again, my sincere apologies for not keeping a tab on the time. We want to be respectful, and certainly all of the presentations I think are very valuable, incredible information. So thank you for sharing the web modification projects and your expertise with our crowd. I would like to introduce Michael Fleming. He is an author of a recent book that has come out, which addresses geoengineering, climate modification, and certain risks that go along with these damaging programs. So, Michael, thank you very much. If you could either sit down or stand up, whichever you would prefer.
Yeah, I don't have a visual presentation. I'm just going to do the speech.
Thank you.
Can you hear me on the microphone okay? No, you can't. All right. So, yeah, I wanted to start off with a poem that was written in 1891. This is on the back of my book, Weather and Active Man. The poem is The Rhyme of the Rain Machine by F.W. Clark. Said Jeremy Jonathan Jones, the weather is far too dry, so I reckon I'll have to stir my bones and try the effect of concussive tones upon the lazy sky. So Jeremy Jonathan Jones went away to the nearest town, and there his money was quickly spent for queer contraptions all intent to make the rain come down. There were cannon and mortars and lots of shells, and dynamite by the ton, with a gas balloon and a chime of bells and various other mystic spells to overcloud the sun. The day was fair and the sky was bright, and never a cloud was seen, when Jeremy Jonathan set alight his biggest fuse and screwed up tight the joints of the rain machine. He fired a shot and barely two when the sky began to pale. The third brought a heavy dew, but at the fourth, tornadoes blew with thunder, rain, and hail. It rained all night and another day, and then for a week or more. It flooded the farm in a scandalous way and drowned poor Jeremy, sad to say, who couldn't stop the pour. Jeremy Jonathan Jones, your farm was fair to see, but now a lake lies over its stones, from whose dark bosom horrific moans are hard not to leave. To check the flood you've started, I've heard all the efforts were in vain, until the Bureau in Washington stirred and stopped the storm with a single word, just by predicting rain. In 1891 is when Texas weather modification, the largest weather modification program in the United States, began their official cloud seeding program with multiple areas producing clouds by rockets. They were producing clouds, like he said, the same way from the ground mist generators, and they have caused tons of storms, hurricanes. I'm sorry, not hurricanes, tornadoes through the states of Kansas, Oklahoma, killed hundreds of people. On a yearly basis, they call it tornado season, quote unquote. And the reality of it is that this weather is manufactured in America. But the speech, I wrote this little speech just to talk mostly about geoengineering, and I'll go ahead and start that. Weather is an act of man, not an act of God, not a peril of Mother Nature, but an act of man. We created this society, and now we must prevent it from being destroyed. Weather is the #1 killer of people worldwide, with 60,000 people dying daily. After thousands of geoengineering complaints over the last few years, if not hundreds of thousands, I am grateful to the organizations who have taken steps to protect local citizens through the Clean Air Act and other regulations that prevent innocent lives from succumbing to disease and death from our most important life-supporting substance, which is air. Clouds contain water, but consist mostly of pollution. All clouds are man-made. One life taken is too many. When 40% of the population is dying from air pollution, we have an obvious genocide problem on our hands. The IPCC estimates over 2 billion people to die by 2025 from solar radiation emission scenarios, which is referred to as geoengineering, of course. Now, I'm not here today to complain about exhaust from passenger jets. I'm not here to complain about what some call condensation trails and a weak attempt to trick the gullible into accepting the obvious emission of pollution. I'm here to talk about geoengineering, the euphemism or cover story for what is known as using chemical weapons against citizens. As this was done during Operation LAC, Operation DEW, Project 112, and Operation Ranch End. In Operation LAC, the intelligence community funded the use of chemical weapons against American citizens in order to turn humans into a laboratory test. In violation of the Nuremberg Treaty, The Central Intelligence Agency instructed the Army's chemical laboratory to use aerosolized chemical agents against American citizens to, quote, see how far they would spread. With a result of 1,200 miles and a single release of the supposed harmless bacteria, Bacillus globuli, over the San Francisco Bay, deaths and illnesses resulted in the very first test. Yet the CIA kept funding the research into creating an artificial sulfate atmosphere with cadmium sulfide, which is a battery acid, and is similar to the same substance now used, which is sulfuric acid. Innocent Americans were subjected to these tests, and many people died. Just as Napoleon used sulfur dioxide to murder the Haitians, just as sulfur dioxide is a chemical terror agent, according to the Department of Homeland Security, just as the Environmental Modification Convention banned the use of weather modification activities in 1980 with the United States, just as an international ban was signed against geoengineering in 2010, just as chemical terrorism and biological testing laws prevent such activities, why do we allow our children to be intentionally sprayed with aluminum oxide, sulfuric acid, sulfur dioxide, and other biological and chemical agents for, quote, climate change? How can we allow this repeat of history to continue? From what I remember, the climate was doing just fine before these individuals started tampering with it. As a matter of fact, the 1990s were flourishing with hope for my country of America. Our technology level was increasing faster than anyone else in the world. Our spirits were higher than ever before. And now we are nothing more than a third world country, second to China, subjected to the use of chemical terror agents by the terrorist regime of Barack Hussein Obama and over 50 additional nations, which all participate in geoengineering schemes. My mother always taught me that serial killers were arrested and that bad guys went to jail. My professor in the Law Enforcement Academy teaches me that the only thing required to convict a criminal in a court of law is two credible witnesses or an admission from the guilty party. We have both in addition to official documentation as well as admissions of guilt from the perpetrators. I'm left to ask myself, what is the problem? Has extradition become extinct? Did the war on terror go the wrong way? Do we now allow terrorists to roam free? And have we declared a war on the innocent people? From what I see, we have done nothing less. We have admissions from David Keith, admitted serial killer and poster child of the geoengineering program, that he is releasing chemical agents on the population. We have thousands of people complaining about it to federal law enforcement and regulatory agencies, begging for it to stop. We have nothing but lies and deceit from these individuals, and much more, nothing more than a carbon credit scheme in place. Corporations are cashing in on the insurance policies of billions of lives while taxing the very air that we breathe. David Keith is not only an advocate and admitted performer of this chemical terrorism program, he is also the owner of a company called Carbon Engineering in Calgary, Canada. Just as BP pleaded guilty to 13 counts of manslaughter and obstruction of justice, and yet received nothing more than a fine, David Keith receives nothing more than a few phone calls for slaughtering 40% of the population in the largest terror attack and Ponzi scheme in history. We have had 5 mass extinctions before from sulfur dioxide, and we are now the 6th mass extinction already in progress. We must not let this virus from the United States must not allow this virus from the United States to plague the rest of the world with their climate control schemes. This is a simple problem with a simple solution. If criminals are allowed to roam free, crimes will be committed. I ask for the system that has been put in place to begin to function once again. The first intentional cloud seeding began in the 1800s, while the first aircraft cloud seeding was performed in 1923. Again, this repeat of history must not be allowed to continue. The problem of climate change can be solved by eliminating geoengineering and cloud seeding schemes. The solution to overpopulation can be solved by focusing on renewable energy. We have only one life and one world. Our duty is to preserve and maintain both for our and our children's future. All this information can be located at www.stopchemicalterrorism.com, and I also have official documents on the website for the gentleman who asked. He's not in here right now, but he asked who was doing this. And the admissions that I've received are NASA, DARPA, NOAA, and the Central Intelligence Agency. And the 2 bases that I've had, actually it was 3. There's NASA Wallops, NASA Armstrong, and Pinal Air Park for the Central Intelligence Agency, which is in Verona, Arizona. Those are the 3 aircraft facilities that have actual aircraft that perform this against the United States and the rest of the world.
Thank you very much, Michael, for bringing your expertise and your knowledge to the table. Obviously a diverse look at the different sides of cloud seeding and geoengineering, and there are some risks and benefits, and I think that we're covering that very well. I'd like to introduce to you